Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Leslie and it is the day. I am done with the 30-day declutter challenge. I am so glad that I did this challenge. I have so many good things to say. I'm also glad that I did it backwards, where I started at 30 items, 29, and so on, instead of starting at 1, because it made the end of the challenge so easy. I'm not gonna lie, I combined the last 3 days, the 1, 2, and 3 items, because there's just so few. I mean, if you can declutter one item, you're probably gonna find more. So I just found so many items, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of 6. So I guess to be fair, I cheated a little bit, but I still got the same total of items. So I want to tell you about some of the things I learned, some tips I have if you're thinking about doing this challenge. The first thing that I really struggled with was decision fatigue. And I think this is because I started going backwards. So after the first week or so, it started to get a little rough because that was such a big number of items to get rid of. It was starting to get a little tough. I posted in my update video like a week or whatever ago. I posted that I started looking in places that I don't normally think about. So I had a drawer on my dresser that I realized I hadn't opened since we moved here like 8 or 9 months ago. So I looked in there. Of course, I found a whole bunch of stuff I don't need. Same with the kitchen cabinets. There's a cabinet you find yourself not opening that often. Check that. Same with drawers. That was a big one. So there was a kitchen drawer on the bottom of the row of drawers, and I just like never opened it. So I finally did, and I found a whole bunch of items in there that I didn't need. Decision fatigue is a big one. Just try your best to push through it. If you're having trouble with it, go back to easy items. So things that are really quick to get rid of. Things I turned to were like expired items, duplicate items, in some cases even broken items, just anything that is an easy no, just to get rid of it so you don't even have to think about it. One of my biggest challenges with getting rid of things is the thought that I might need it someday. So it's not even about the value or about sentimental reasons. A lot of times it's just, hey, I might need this someday, so why get rid of it and rebuy it? But one thing that happens to me is that I will hang on to it and then forget I have it because it's not in front of my face. So I end up rebuying it anyway. So I end up with 2 of the same item, and it's so stupid. Like, why do I do that? I should know by now. I am learning. If it's something I haven't used in a while or that I'm gonna forget about, that I know I'm gonna forget about, I'll just go ahead and get rid of it, especially if it's something cheap. I've heard the rule if you can replace it for, I believe, $20 within 20 minutes. Oh, what is it? It's something like that. But if you can replace it for cheap and quickly, then what's the point of hanging on to it? Also, I've seen some people recommend asking yourself questions like, if I spilled tomato sauce on this, would I replace it? If the cat puked on this, would I replace it? If the dog pooped on it, would I replace it? Asking these questions can kind of make you realize whether or not you really want to hang on to something. So that asking that question actually did help in some cases. It can also be hard when you're so used to seeing items around you. So there's some things that I've had through like multiple apartment moves and things that I just see as being part of my collection of stuff. So it's really hard to just think about getting rid of it because I'm so used to seeing it. It's almost like you become blind to it. So for me, it was really important to go through and like physically touch things, like take them out of the storage box, take them out of the drawer, like just get them in front of me so I can be like, hey, is this something I actually use? No, probably not. Get rid of it. So that made that process a little easier. And it does tend to get easier once you get momentum, because once I pushed through some of those rough like decision fatigue days, it got so much easier and I just flew through it. There were some days where I had like 2 days done at a time. So it just because I kept finding things. So that's one thing you can do too, especially if you're very busy. Maybe there's one day where you just get home late from work, you just don't feel like decluttering that day. That's okay. Just add that number to the day before, the day after. Well, I guess you couldn't do it before if you don't know, but add it to the day after. I know for me, there was one day I knew was going to be crazy busy. So I actually did do the day before. I went ahead and did like basically double the items. So I was able to skip the next day. So I did do that a couple times, which is totally fine because you end up with the same number of items gone. So, I mean, it's not that serious. And I think being flexible like that, especially if you're busy, like I know I have a lot of working moms who are starting to come to my channel because that's one thing I tend to talk about. So if you are very busy mom, whatever it is, being able to kind of adjust the challenge to your schedule is something that can be really useful. Another thing you can do if you don't want to do the exact days, just get a piece of paper, write the number. Sorry, my cat's trying to come in. Oh my gosh, finally let her in. So one thing you can do is just write on a piece of paper the numbers 1 through 30, and each day just mark off a number. That way you still have the 30-day declutter number of items, but you can kind of split up the different days. So maybe you did 30 items the first day and you're like, man, I really don't feel like thinking through this. So the next day you might do 2 items, just mark off the number 2. I hope that makes sense. But that's one variation that you can do if you're not able to do the items every day in the order. Small wins can really help your mentality. So if there's a day you're struggling and you just want to do some of those easy items to get them knocked out of the way, go ahead and do that, because then it will really help your mindset when you're like, hey, I didn't feel like doing this at all and I still managed to get rid of 20 items. You'll just be more motivated to do it the next day. So one of the things that I learned is that this will definitely be an ongoing process, because as I was getting rid of all of these things, I am doing a low buy year, so I didn't bring in a whole lot, but I did bring in a few things where I'm like, hey, I just brought in more stuff, even though it's stuff we needed. Like I know my daughter needed some shirts, and then there's a couple other things like that. It's still stuff that we brought in here. So I'm gonna need to get rid of some things. So for her, I bought her the next size up in shirts, so I can easily just go ahead and get rid of the ones that don't fit as well. So just keep that in mind. If you wanna start doing like the 1 in, 1 out rule, that would be really good. Either way, it's just an ongoing thing. I think I actually wanna do this challenge again, maybe in the spring, because I definitely have more stuff in our sunroom I want to get rid of, but it is so cold in there that I didn't want to sit there and sort through all these boxes when it's like 20 degrees in there. So I think I'm going to try again in the spring maybe. But yeah, doing more than one of these declutter challenges would be a great way to get rid of some of your stuff. I also noticed that clutter can really affect my mental state, even if it's in storage. So like I have some storage boxes, and just knowing that there's a bunch of stuff in there, I don't necessarily know what it is or if I need it. It really makes me feel kind of anxious to have all of this stuff. So getting rid of a lot of it, going through a lot of my storage has been really nice and really to just help me feel more relaxed in my home. I know from my background it looks like I don't have anything in here, but it's because we're in the bedroom, obviously, and the bedroom is where I had the least stuff because I want it to be the calmest room for when I go to sleep. So I want my bedroom basically like a hotel room. I don't want stuff out. I want it to be really basic, really minimal. So this is a really bad example of what the rest of my apartment looks like. But I just knowing how calming it is to not have much out in here, I need to extend that to the rest of my apartment. The only downside to that is that there's a lot of stuff where I need to see it in order to not forget it. So there's a fair amount of stuff that I do need to leave out just so that I remember it. I know that sounds so stupid, but we all have our issues. So I will not be one of those people who has completely clean surfaces everywhere, but if I can get it down to a smaller number of items, then I'm all good. Another thing to keep in mind is that not everyone is going to be on board with your decluttering. So for example, I live with my husband, our daughter. So our daughter, for one, she's not going to be doing any decluttering. She's 5 years old. So she's not involved in the decluttering process. But my husband, he's not really interested in doing that either. And to be honest, he doesn't have a whole lot of stuff that needs to be decluttered, he's doing all right. So this journey was basically just mine, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with it. But just keep that in mind. If other people around you aren't on board, that's okay. Just start with your stuff. I know it can be really frustrating if it's someone you live with, especially if they're bringing stuff in as you're trying to get rid of stuff. So as I started this declutter journey, my husband bought a 3D printer. So I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of all of this stuff, and he brought that in and is like printing things, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm trying to get rid of stuff. But it's okay. It's been okay. It hasn't been that bad. He hasn't gone overboard, but still, I'm like, are you serious? I'm starting this whole thing. But what I did, I still have way more stuff than he has. So I just focused on my own stuff, and that was good enough for me. And just getting my stuff under control like really helped me. So just keep that in mind. You'll be fine. It can also be helpful to just remember why you're doing this, because you will have times where it gets hard. You'll have times where you can't decide if you want to keep something or get rid of it. You'll have times where you don't want to get rid of anything. Just keep in mind the reasons why. So for me, a lot of it is the mental clarity and the mental health reasons. Another one is my daughter. I don't want her being greedy and wanting stuff and having like a crazy Christmas list each year and all this stuff. I want to set a good example. I want her to be used to growing up in a home that's not just packed with things. Growing up, my parents' house, I think it's pretty cluttered. It was probably pretty representative of just your average like middle class family, but I always thought it was a little over cluttered. They like to put stuff on surfaces. They would have too much furniture. I just felt like it was over cluttered. But since I got used to that, that's kind of what my default was, and I fell into that really easily when I got my first apartment. I just started filling it up, and until this whole journey, like within the past year or so, really since we moved, I just fell into that default. So I don't want my daughter to have that as her default, just having a bunch of things. I want her to have it in mind that you can get by with less quality items, and you don't have to have all your surfaces covered, that you can find other things that will fulfill you besides buying stuff. But in the end, I am just so glad I did this. I can't believe the amount of items I got rid of. It was a total of 465 items. So almost 500 items. I mean, honestly, I think in some cases I did a few extra just when I was really on a roll. So it's quite possible I did get up to 500. But either way, 465 items over the course of a month is just so amazing. I mean, things like old craft supplies, clothes, my daughter's clothes, kitchen gadgets, office supplies, my some of my Etsy shop stuff, because I've downsized my Etsy stuff a lot. Again, she keeps distracting me, but I've downsized my Etsy stuff a lot. So just finding things like that to get rid of, it feels so good to have gotten rid of all that stuff. I honestly wish I could get rid of half of my apartment sometimes, but it's already getting kind of hard to figure out what I want to get rid of. The only other thing now is I have like a little pile of things I was going to list on eBay, and I've really been dragging my feet on that. So some of that stuff I might just end up donating. Yeah, I just have to finish getting rid of the stuff I was going to sell, and I'm good. I think that was like 20 items or something. It's not that much at all, 15 or 20 items. So yeah, let me know if you're doing a 30-day declutter challenge. Let me know how it's going or how it went. I would love to hear, because it's just been such a great experience. So let me know in the comments, and do like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.